Hey everyone, good afternoon. Hope you're all having a blessed and safe day today. Um, all of you who are watching out there, depending on where you're watching from, here in Merced, California, it's been raining a bit, and right now it's you know cloudy with a bit of sunshine coming out apparently. So that's a good thing. But we do need rain, even though I'm not a big fan of it because I don't really like to go outside when it's raining and get wet. But, anyways, before I jump on in here, I just wanted to say to everyone thank you for supporting my YouTube channel. There's been a bit of subscribers who have been subscribing to my channel nonstop. Right now, I am at 37, and I know that's still not a lot, but Lord willing, it'll keep climbing, and that's all glory to God for that. Very thankful and blessed, that I can continue to do this, and through His strength and through my confidence in Him and trusting in Him to help me do this. So, anyways, again, thank you. Much gratefulness and appreciation to you all out there. Um, and I also wanted to mention quickly, usually I do this at the end of the video, but again, I just want to put out there, if anyone has any questions, any comments, feel free to comment. Feel free to leave a question. I know not too many people, comment or ask any questions, and maybe some feel like they don't really have a lot to say, or maybe some have nothing to say at all. But if you still want to comment on something that I had particularly touched on, in a paragraph or two, just feel free to put your thoughts out there, and I'll try to respond if I can. As I said before, concerning some questions, if someone asks me a question in a certain way that I don't process it that adequately, I would ask that person to kind of clarify it a little bit more, so that way I can give a proper answer, a proper response, if I can. That's just how it is. Sometimes I just need a little more clarification to better understand what's being said. So, anyways, getting right to it, this is part 3 of getting around, of how I get around from day to day, regardless of not having a vehicle. And again, just to recap a little bit, part 1 was more of a generalized overview. Part 2 was more of a personal overview, a personalization of my feelings and thoughts behind, why I about concerning how I get around, and at times having to be dependent on other people, and still physically able to get around regardless of not having a vehicle to drive, and having to be reliant upon other means of mobility and transportation. So, part three will be touching on why I don't drive, and getting started on my outline here. Many have asked me before why I don't drive or work on getting a driver's license. I would respond with, I just haven't gotten around to it yet, or I'm not ready yet, or I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And so, at first it was just a matter of putting it off, you know, um, as I said, not really getting around to it. I mean, there was a time where, like, all other teenagers and young people, I did have a desire to drive. I did have some interest, even though I knew it would be a lot of work and a lot of studying, a lot of knowing all the basics and the rules of the road and traffic laws and all that. So, anyways, I know most young people, teenagers, they usually start to work on, you know, uh, uh, learning how to drive, getting their learner's permit as early as 15, 16 years old. And most other people later on in life, whether, they're in their 20s or even their 30s or even their 40s, later in life would get their license. Um, so, it was just something that I never really got around to as quickly as everyone else, almost everyone else. And there were at least a couple times that I had actually went out on the road and had learned. The first time was when I was 19. I'm not going to get too much into that one, but suffice to say, I was practicing with my dad at that time, and it was a pretty intense moment. Suffice to say, there was a moment where I was learning on making a turn at an intersection, and when I was doing well making that turn, and then when I got to turning back to facing the road, and I ended up going over somebody's lawn, and suffice to say that was again a pretty intense moment there. Um, the second time that I went out driving, fast forwarding a few years later, I was 23, 24, already a young adult, and there was a gentleman who I knew from my former church, or the church that I was attending that time, who uh, took me out for a drive that day. We went out to Castle Airport to one of the um, parking areas out there that was vacated, and practiced a few driving techniques. And he was very patient with me. I mean, I don't remember too much about it, but again, he was very patient with me and went over some of the techniques and everything. And so, that time it was a bit more manageable. And since that time, I never went back out. I hadn't went back out to practice. There have been occasions where I would read the driver's handbook, the manual, um, pretty much every year, of course, as everybody knows, they would update it. While most of the rules and regulations and what to do and where to stop and what speed to go, or if you're in a particular area, or if you come up to a certain stopway or the railroad crossing, they have mileage rules for that, which I'm sure hasn't changed, of course, but of course they've probably updated and upgraded most of the rules, if not all. I'm sure many of you out there would probably know. But anyways, so years go by and I'm not really thinking about it, and I've become pretty settled, pretty comfortable, and you know as far as how I get around and having to be dependent on other people to get somewhere, especially out of town, or vacations and trips, or if I have to do a certain errand, or do some shopping. Anyways, so at first it was just a matter of, like I said earlier, just a matter of putting it off and not really getting around to it. However, with knowing more about myself now and the autistic differences I have, the truth is it has to do with the heightened sensory areas of my brain. There's too much to process with being behind the wheel, in addition to knowing every detail of the vehicle. Not to mention when to brake, when to hit the gas pedal, when to stop, checking the mirrors, being mindful of other motorists, pedestrians, and when to turn. So when I got to knowing more about Asperger's and being on the autistic spectrum, and the neurological differences in my brain, the sensory overloads, and as it made more sense, it had occurred to me that being out on the road, if I were to actually learn how to drive, and even while learning, it would just be too much. It would just be too much heightened anxiety going on in my mind, and just a buildup of sensory overloads, and having to constantly remember, okay, I have to do this, I have to know where this is at, I have to remember when to brake, when to park, or when to back up, or parallel park, if that's even possible, or looking to see who's behind me, who's around me, be mindful of other drivers, other motorists, the mileage, the speed that I'm going, making sure I'm at the right speed, just all of that, really causing too much, overloads and too much anxiety, just so overwhelming. And of course, I'm not trying to make anybody feel anxious out there. I mean, I know there are a lot of well-experienced drivers out there. So anyways, I'm afraid that if I have a blank moment, or a mental pause, or a sudden sensory overload occurs, an accident could happen. Yeah, and even not being a driver, I mean, that's not to say I haven't been in accidents before. When being in a vehicle, I think back to that last time I was in an accident. I had posted about it, of course, on Facebook. It was July 4th, Independence Day, and my dad and I were driving to my apartment. Um, and there apparently was this drunk driver who was out on the road, was incoherent, and um, I had thought at first that he was just, already making his turn too soon into the, I think it was the right turning lane. I have to look to see if I'm pointing the right direction there, but I think it was the right turning lane because we were driving down M Street, and it looked like he was gonna turn right on Rambler, and next thing I knew is he was about almost halfway past us. There was that sudden bump. We got hit. Thankfully, nothing too serious happened. The Durango was still intact. Dan and I, we were both wearing our seatbelts, and we were able to get off the road onto the side there near the sidewalk, get off the street there, and unfortunately, the driver crashed into the house, the last house there at the end of M and Rambler right there. So yeah, it's just, those things I'm very weary about. And again, I'm not trying to scare anyone out there, but accidents do happen, whether we want them to or not. And for the most part, it's unexpected. You never know when it's going to happen, and yeah, it's just the adrenaline of it, the intensity of it. It's quite scary, and I know a lot of you have experienced that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's like there's not to mention there's you know many inconsiderate people out there, just people who are just too focused on where they have to go, and they're not thinking about anyone else around them, and just people who are naturally impatient. They feel like even if they're not in a hurry to get to where they're going, they act like they're in a hurry, which you know can be a accident waiting to happen in itself. Um, People who are just so anxious to want to, make their turns or to make their way through. And, even as I'm walking or bicycling out there, there's just people who have, a lack of respect, a disregard for, other people who are just, you know, following the traffic rules, and just are driving safely. And I know one peeve I usually deal with is when I'm about to cross an intersection, and there'll be other people who are waiting to make their turns, And when the light turns green for me to cross, whether I'm on foot or on my bicycle, and there'll be someone who's just so anxious to make their turn as if their life depends on it. And, they don't even consider that I'm about to cross the street there. And it's like, you couldn't have waited a few seconds. You know, did it have to be that important for you to make your turn? Like everything depended on it? I know many of you probably had to deal with that a lot as well. So, yeah, anyways, that's one peeve that I have. And, it's not just motorists. There are pedestrians, even bicyclists out there who um, just, walk right out into traffic, never use the crosswalk. Um, and it's like, for some reason they just, have this thought that somehow nothing's going to happen to them, or that they're indestructible or impervious, invincible somehow, that they're not going to get hurt. And, it's just some, who don't care, or, some who genuinely have a mental issue of sorts. And I'm not trying to belittle anyone who deals with, a mental issue or a mental sickness, or if they're incoherent in some ways, but there's a lot of that does happen, and it's unfortunate. And, a lot of people out there who are just so aggressive, once they're out on the road. And, it's like, some who even have that, that, Jekyll and Hyde persona. It's like, at first they're well mannered, they're well together, and then once they're out on the road, it's like instant road rage. I mean, that's not really funny, but there's just aggressive people out there, unfortunately. And yeah, and people being too hasty with making turns. I know I said that earlier, as if their lives depended on it. People who take too many drastic measures, thinking that they're invincible and they can get away with it. Well, as long as, there's not a police officer around or highway patrol officer around, though I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. Better safe than sorry. But anyways, there are those on the autistic spectrum who have worked through their sensory areas, becoming more confident and efficient with their driving. I know there's a lot of you out there who are on the autistic spectrum who are, you've been able to get a better grip, better management on your sensory overloads, and, worked really hard to minimize those distractions, mentally and neurologically, and, working hard at it. And I commend you for that. I guess I'm just one of those who, just feels more the weight of those sensory overloads in my mind. And, just hadn't really, conquered those anxieties, concerning, um, following through with driving and whatnot. So, um, I guess I just never gave it more of a chance becoming comfortable with myself. So I was just saying, it's not that I wouldn't be open to learning again. However, these days there are more aggressive and irresponsible motorists who do not pay attention to their surroundings and other people, as I was saying a little while ago, deliberately ignoring traffic rules whenever it suits them, as I was touching on that. And with gasoline prices as high as they are, I feel that I'm just better off without a car, sticking to how I get around. Of course, we've seen in the last few years how gasoline prices have skyrocketed, going as high as over $4, maybe even over $5. I think there have been some places recently where they're starting to go down a bit, so. Even again with having a vehicle, there were other things that I would have to do, pay insurance, get it smogged, um, get it approved for, a test run and all that stuff. So, a lot of that I don't have to worry about. I think I said this in one of my either part one or part two. However, that's not to say that there are some regrets as far as not being able to drive. I don't have the luxury of, getting away somewhere, just driving someplace just to get away by myself, go on a vacation by myself, um, just taking one of those trips. I would have to be dependent on somebody else. And unfortunately, you know, so that's um, that right there in itself is a regret, as far as, not being able to drive. But, it is what it is. So just learn to live with it. And, that's pretty much it. So, anyways, thank you for um, checking this out, and for hopefully you've had a chance to watch part one and two as well. Again, if you have any questions and comments, feel free to ask, and feel free to leave a comment if you'd like. In the near future, I'll, Lord willing, try to get around on touching some other areas that I want to get into as well. And again, thank you for your support, and for for going on this journey with me as I go further into this. Take care, and blessings to you all, and happy Thanksgiving. God bless.